The room is almost completely dark. A single spotlight, cold, surgical, indifferent, falls on a canvas roughly 4 feet tall. The painting is almost entirely black. Black on black. Layered darkness like a scream with no sound. And in front of it stands Victor Sterling, Manhattan's most feared art appraiser. A man who built a $10 million empire on the broken dreams of artists half his age. But tonight, Victor Sterling is not standing. He is trembling. His custom Brioni suit, the one he wore to the Met Gala just 2 weeks ago, is now wrinkled, soaked through with sweat along the collar. His left hand grips the edge of a mahogany desk. His right hand holds a single sheet of paper, a legal document. And his face, the face that smiled from the covers of Forbes and Architectural Digest, has gone completely, utterly white. Because on the back of the canvas, hidden beneath a thin layer of gesso that dissolved under ultraviolet light just 1 hour ago, there is a message. 7 words. Handwritten in deep crimson paint. And those 7 words have just destroyed everything. Victor Sterling has spent $10 million on a ghost. And the ghost knew exactly what he was doing. Welcome to the Payback Club. If you want to witness how the arrogant fall, slowly, completely, and in front of everyone, then subscribe right now, leave a like, and share this story with every friend who believes that greed always carries its own punishment. Because today we are watching a masterpiece. Not painted on canvas, painted in strategy, in patience, and in absolute, devastating justice. Stay until the very end. Because the twist is going to change the way you see art, power, and revenge forever. Let us begin. His name was Victor Sterling, and in the elite Manhattan art scene, that name was both a crown and a weapon. At 53, as the senior partner of Sterling Appraisal and Acquisitions on the Upper East Side, his client list read like a Forbes 400 supplement. Hedge fund managers, European royals, and tech billionaires. Victor had a gift. Not the gift of creation, but of recognition. He could glance at a canvas for 40 seconds and know, with chilling accuracy, whether it would sell for $5,000 or $5 million. That gift made him indispensable. It also made him a predator. Quietly, Victor developed a second business model below the surface. He maintained a network of scouts across graduate programs in Brooklyn, Harlem, and the Bronx. When he identified an emerging talent with explosive commercial potential, he didn't buy as a client. He arrived in person, impeccably dressed, acting as a savior. He would offer to purchase their entire existing body of work for a price that, to a 23-year-old surviving on ramen, sounded life-changing. $15,000 or $25,000. Overwhelmed and grateful, the artist would sign. What the contract's dense legal language deliberately obscured was that they were surrendering all rights, attribution, and future claims. Within months, Victor would sell those pieces to his private client list for sums ranging from $200,000 to well over $1 million per canvas. This is the world into which Daniel Reeves walked in early October. Daniel was a 24-year-old painter from Queens, the son of a school bus driver, who spent every hour in a closet-sized studio producing work that his professors described as generationally singular. His paintings were vast, emotionally violent, and technically precise. Victor Sterling walked into Daniel's studio, moved slowly, and paused in front of a series of 7 large canvases titled The Architecture of Forgetting. It was the center of Daniel's artistic identity. Victor offered him $18,000 for all 7 pieces, promising to introduce him to the right people. Daniel hesitated, then signed. 6 months later, the first canvas from that series sold at a private auction for $340,000. Daniel found out from a Google alert. He called Victor's office 14 times and consulted a lawyer, only to learn that Victor had not broken a single law. Every predatory clause was enforceable. Daniel owned nothing. Not even the right to be credited as the creator of his own work. Most people would have collapsed. Daniel Reeves started planning. It began with an email sent from an encrypted, untraceable address to the private inbox of Gideon Marsh, a Swiss art advisor who served as Victor's reliable pipeline to European billionaires. The message read, "I represent the estate of an artist known only as the Shadow. This individual has not exhibited publicly in over a decade and has recently completed what may be the most significant single canvas produced in the Western world since the late 20th century. If your clients have the financial capacity and discretion, I am prepared to share information under a strict non-disclosure framework. This offer will not be repeated." Within weeks, a whisper moved through the private clubs of Geneva, London, and Monaco. There was a painter called The Shadow, and he had made an unexplainable masterpiece. Victor Sterling heard the whisper at a dinner party in Tribeca from a Norwegian shipping magnate. From that moment, he could not think of anything else. Beneath his tailored wool, Victor had one fatal weakness. He could not bear to let a great work of art pass through the world without his fingerprints on it. And someone somewhere was dangling exactly that. Victor was not impulsive, so his first move was to investigate. He paid a private intelligence firm $40,000 for a comprehensive dossier on The Shadow. They came back with almost nothing, which made it even more intriguing. There had been a small number of authenticated works by an anonymous artist using a stylized brushstroke signature circulating through private European collections for 7 years. The works were monumental, masterful, and genuinely, profoundly black, layered with textures that required specialized lighting to perceive. The authentication was impeccable, backed by respected art historians in Zurich. And then the trail had gone cold. Until now. Victor doubled his investment, activated his contacts in Paris, and met quietly in Geneva with a dealer who showed him a single photograph of a shadow piece on a locked tablet. Victor stared at it for 10 minutes. The professional neutrality was gone. Only pure want remained. Over the following weeks, encrypted communications arrived for Victor through a discreet art logistics specialist in Brussels named Elise Fontaine. The Shadow, they explained, had completed a final capstone work. The artist had no interest in public auctions or museums. The painting would be sold once, privately, to a single collector with the sophistication to understand it. Victor Sterling was being invited to submit a letter of interest. Victor rewrote it 11 times. Meanwhile, in a small apartment in Queens, Daniel Reeves was reading every message Victor sent before it was ever transmitted. Daniel had designed, built, and operated every single element of this architecture over 14 months of meticulous construction. He had 2 collaborators, his college roommate, Marcus Chin, a computer science expert who built the digital identities and fake European databases, and Sofia Reyes, a recent law graduate specializing in art fraud. Together they built The Shadow from nothing. The 3 authenticated works in Europe were real canvases painted by Daniel over 18 months. The provenance and pigment analyses were genuine because Daniel knew Victor was too smart to be fooled by a cheap trick. The trap had to be expensive to build because it had to be devastating to fall into. Victor received his invitation to view the final canvas on a Monday morning in February. It was a beautifully typeset letter delivered by courier, but it came with a psychological condition that made Victor's veteran attorney, Gerald Park, deeply uneasy. The clause stated, "The prospective buyer must sign a declaration acknowledging the work may produce a significant emotional response, and agrees to conduct all subsequent acquisition discussions through the intermediary alone, with no independent legal review of the final contract permitted within the 48 hours following the viewing." Gerald Park told him flatly that it was a manipulation tactic and to walk away. Victor Sterling told his lawyer he was being paranoid, and signed the declaration. He believed he was the smartest person in every room he had ever entered. He never considered the possibility of a room designed specifically to contain him. The auction was held on a Friday night in a West Village penthouse, prepared with theatrical precision. The floors were white oak, the walls museum-grade white, and the space was decorated entirely with black dahlias, black calla lilies, and black-dyed orchids. At the far end, draped in a deep burgundy velvet curtain, was the canvas. There were 8 other people in the room. 3 appeared to be competing bidders, each with an assistant. 2 managed the event, and 3 represented the seller, including Elise Fontaine. Victor had no idea that the competing bidders were professional actors hired from a Brooklyn agency. Their assistants were Marcus Chin and his friends. The entire room had been rented and installed by Daniel's team over the previous 4 days. The bidders were handed genuine documentation packages, and then the curtain fell away. The canvas was enormous, 8 feet tall, 6 feet wide, and profoundly black. In the controlled light, the surface revealed layers of textures that suggested form without defining it, receding beyond the physical plane. Victor stood before it for 10 minutes, motionless. In that silence, Daniel's victory was complete. The canvas was real, and Daniel Reeves was a better painter than anyone in that room understood. The bidding opened at $1 million. The actors pushed the price quickly through 3, 4, and 5 million. A stage veteran actress pushed it to 6.2. Victor countered at 7. The actors systematically slowed their responses and dropped out. Finally, an anonymous bidder on the telephone pushed Victor to $9.9 million. Victor Sterling bid $10 million. The room went silent. Then the telephone bidder withdrew. Sold. At $10 million. To Mr. Sterling. Bound by the 48-hour no legal review clause, Victor could not consult his lawyer or run financial verifications. He moved with a speed he had never used in 20 years of business. Within 18 hours, the entirety of his company's corporate reserve account, an emergency liquidity fund meant for business continuity, was transferred to the escrow entity. The canvas was delivered to his gallery the next morning. Victor told no one. He planned to reveal the acquisition at a massive press event the following Saturday, inviting every major art journalist, collector, and cultural figure. He told himself he had purchased the Holy Grail. He did not yet know what was on the back of the frame. Saturday evening arrived. The gallery on East 79th Street was transformed with black silk panels. 114 elite guests accepted the invitation. An international documentary camera crew was granted exclusive access. Victor hadn't questioned their sudden interest. He was too consumed by his own coronation. The camera crew belonged to Daniel. At 8 o'clock, Victor stepped to the microphone. He spoke eloquently for 4 minutes, describing the Shadow as an artist who rejected the ego of the commercial market, and stated it was the privilege of his life to bring this work into the light. He nodded and the velvet curtain fell. The room went silent, but the response was not awe. It was confusion, then intense alertness. In the full, bright gallery lighting, completely different from the controlled penthouse atmosphere, the canvas looked different. Faint text, running vertically along the left edge, became visible. It was incorporated so seamlessly into the layered black pigment that it required full-spectrum light to be seen. A guest read it first, then a critic, then a curator. And then, every phone in the room buzzed simultaneously. 114 smartphones. It was a direct, push broadcast message delivered through the Gallery Experience app the guests had downloaded. Notice of federal art fraud investigation. Case reference #7741M. The canvas currently displayed at Sterling & Company is the subject of a federal inquiry into a scheme involving the fraudulent acquisition of artists' work through predatory contractual practices. The artist formerly known as The Shadow requests that all present bear witness. The attached link opened a website containing 47 pages of real contracts, internal communications, and valuation reports detailing Victor Sterling's predatory system spanning 8 years, 14 artists, and $22 million in fraudulent profit. Front and center was Daniel Reeves's contract for the architecture of forgetting, showing the $18,000 purchase alongside the immediate $340,000 resale. The room erupted. Victor Sterling stood at the microphone as the floor fell away beneath his feet, his stunned face captured by dozens of smartphones and 2 documentary cameras. Daniel Reeves was standing at the back of the gallery, wearing a dark gray jacket and holding a glass of water. He watched Victor's face from 40 feet away, feeling the quiet peace of a person who has finally set a heavy weight down in exactly the right place. The documentation wasn't fabricated. Sofia Reyes had spent 11 months assembling it through subpoenas and confidential testimonies from victimized artists. The FBI's art crime team had opened a formal inquiry weeks prior, and the mass notification served as an investigative tool, establishing over 100 high-profile witnesses simultaneously. Victor's attorneys spent the following week attempting to unwind the transaction. They discovered that the $10 million had been transferred to a legally airtight trust with a single beneficiary, the Emerging Artists Restitution Fund, a non-profit foundation designed to financially support artists victimized by predatory contracts. Furthermore, the contract Victor had signed at the auction contained a hidden clause printed directly into the paper substrate, readable only under specific light. It identified the work not as a commodity sale, but as a commissioned experiential art event, specifying that physical possession did not constitute legal title to the intellectual property. Victor owned the physical canvas, but he could not exhibit it, sell it, or derive any commercial value from it. He had paid $10 million for the right to keep a very large, very black painting in a private room. Sterling Appraisal and Acquisitions filed for bankruptcy 11 weeks later. Victor's largest clients terminated their agreements within days, and the documentary crew released a film about the evening that was viewed by over 9 million people in its first month. Victor Sterling gave no public statement. He was seen once, months later, walking alone down a bleak sidewalk in the Upper West Side, looking like a man who had forgotten where he was going. 14 months later, Daniel Reeves's first solo exhibition opened at a prominent gallery in Chelsea, offering him full commercial and attribution rights. The show sold out before the opening night. The lead piece, a monumental canvas in deep black, sold for $400,000. He titled it The Architecture of Justice. The money went into a savings account and back into his studio. He kept painting in the hours before dawn, in a larger space that still smelled of linseed oil and raw linen, because that was always the point. Not the $10 million or the public fall of a predator. The point was that a piece of art belongs to the person who made it. No contract can permanently sever a creator from their creation. When someone takes the work of a young artist and turns it into a private profit machine, they are not just stealing money. They are stealing a piece of a human life. And sometimes, if that human is patient enough and precise enough, and willing to spend 14 months building a trap more beautiful than anything they were asked to sell, they get it back. If this story moved you, if it made you believe that patience and creativity are the most powerful forces in any room, share it. Subscribe to the Payback Club. Because justice is not always loud. Sometimes it arrives on the back of a canvas, in the dark, in 7 handwritten words. And the arrogant never see it coming.